Ms. Winter, I've enjoyed reading your book. I want to thank you for keeping your journal. I want to thank you for your foresight in making sure that it was presented here to the Department of Archives and History. And Joanne, you've done a wonderful job, and we have Joanne in the collection. There's a journal that Mrs. Pettis kept at the end of the Civil War, so that can be your next project. Let's get into Ms. Winter's story. Certainly, Ms. Winter, you've written a masterful account of your years as First Lady. You've not only described your activities as First Lady, but you have recorded so many of the events that were happening in your private life with your family, the marriages, graduations, the births. I think granddaughter Caroline is here today. We're glad to have her with us. And then poignant moments such as the death of your mom. But to look back a bit in the introduction of your book, you wrote about growing up in Senatobia in a big house. And it was a big house. It was a historic house. I've been there just once. Governor Winter will recall his calling me after his term as governor had ended. I was still director of Archives and History. And MDOT had announced their plans to four-lane Highway 51 right in front of the house. So we had meetings in Senatobia to try to persuade MDOT to not do that. I hope that that's the case. I've not been back.
It's all right.
It's still all right. That's good. Well, in relation to Senatobia, can you identify for us some of the things during your youth and during your school days that may have prepared you for your role as First Lady?
Well, a lot of things happened during that time, I might add. But I grew up in this small town, rode my bicycle to school. My father had a drugstore and was a pharmacist. And we lived there with my mother's 7 brothers and sisters. And we lived in a house that my grandparents shared with us. There were 3 families living there at one point, and the old house still stands. So it's a sentimental journey that you asked me about. But I'd like to change course just for a minute, because I cannot be in this group of wonderful friends without thanking you all for being here. My goodness, how nice you are. And my front row church friends. But I must tell you that Joanne is something else, as you see, and as you know, she has been a delight. And it would never have happened without Joanne. And at times I wondered if it was going to wear her out before she could get through all that stuff that I was giving her. And then William, of course, is my long-standing helper of everything. He and I have been married 64 years, so it's kind of an unusual thing, I suppose, in politics. I'm not sure that I'm aware of anybody else who's persevered that long. but he continues, and a marvelous man that he is. But it really is a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm sort of at a loss, really, because I never thought of myself as a writer. And as you will recall, Joanne has mentioned, thank goodness, at the beginning that this was dictated at night, usually after William was asleep, because I had promised him I would do that. And I reneged at one point, but then he wanted me to keep on, so I did. And I found that in writing, that in recording, that you could say what you felt, not ever realizing that it would result in something like this. Heavens, that was unthinkable to think that it would come to this point. But at any rate, I'm grateful to all of you for your interest. And now, Elbert, I'll let you go back to what you were going to.
Well, back to your growing up. And tell us about your father, who was a politician, public servant, and most certainly he had a unique way of campaigning that was vastly different from what you and Governor Winter had to do.
He did indeed. When my father, my brother and sister and I had finished college, and he felt that at that point he would like to be mayor of the city, of the little town of Saratoga. And I asked him one day if I could help him campaign, and he scoffed at that. He said, I've been living here all my life. Everybody knows me, and if they want me to be mayor, that'll be fine. And of course, he served for 17 years.
Sometimes we wish that campaigns were still that way.
Amen.
Governor Winter's inauguration as governor on January 22, 1980, took place next door in the old Capitol. And of course, we all know that the governors customarily are inaugurated at the state capitol. And it just so happened that at that time, what we call the new Capitol was being restored. And Governor Winter, of course, logically selected the old Capitol to be the site of his inauguration. And the plans were made for that inauguration to be held outside on the porch of the portico there. Everything went well until the weather forecast came. How many of you were present on January 22, 1980? And you will recall that it was raining cats and dogs on that occasion. Well, prior to that day, though, Governor and Ms. Winter had gone through some trying circumstances. And Ms. Winter, if you would, tell us about those weeks that preceded Governor Winter's inauguration.
William had a problem, some eye problems in December, early December, and he talked to Dick White, ophthalmologist, and who said, go right now to Memphis, and where there is a man who can help you. So one of our friends sent us up in his plane, and then by midnight that night, William was being operated on both eyes. We thought only one, but we got through that. It was hard going, and I still remember the nurses saying, when we have patients like this and they come in thinking one eye is a problem and find that both eyes are bandaged, we have to constantly reassure them that you're not blind. And then, of course, he lay there for, I guess, a week or more, but he was tending to, he was already starting on finding people to fill positions in state government. And so when he got home and he had to stay in the bed for so long and not move his head and all that, it was a really difficult situation. And a couple of our very good friends, while we were in Memphis, came up there to be sure that he would be able to serve. And so the Lord blessed us greatly. And he has had good eyesight since then, and has had a little problem from time to time, but all of that is made, we've gotten through that one.
Well, we give thanks for that surgeon. We give thanks for Dr. Blunt for being alert and knowing what to do. Governor Winter does have good eyesight, and he continues to drive. Or I might say he flies low. He can really maneuver. Ms. Winter, you, some years ago, you also wrote a wonderful book entitled Dinner at the Mansion that described the visits of many prominent Mississippi citizens and American citizens, distinguished individuals who came. And in light of the very recent death of the blues icon, Mississippi's B.B. King, could you tell us about his visit at the mansion on the occasion of the Medgar Evers homecoming luncheon in 1983?
Well, it will be very brief because I actually did not hear him speak. He was in the house, and the house was run by, we had 5 inmates who were domestic helpers, and they were so, one of them in particular was just about to die to see B.B. King. So I went back when B.B. was talking, and I went back in the kitchen and I said, all of you all come and meet him because you'll be ashamed that you did get to. So I've done that a time or two with other people, and when Ms. Reagan was there with the Dream Institute group, that she was there, and we have a picture, it's in, I think it's in this book, of Edgar, who is another story in itself. But Edgar was shaking hands with Ms. Reagan, and I wasn't sure that Ms. Reagan was prepared for that, and or any of us, because she's a very quiet person, and we found her to be, but lovely, lovely looking, very, very nice. But I think I maybe maybe I didn't do the right thing, but several times I got the helpers in the kitchen because they work so hard and then serve a meal, and then they've got to tend to all of that at the end of it, and the appointed guests they miss completely. But they did like to stand around and be a part of it.
Well, of all the distinguished guests who participated in the Dinner at the Mansion series, are there particular individuals who stand out in your memory? Are there any who surprised you in any way?
Well, I suppose so, but I somehow, as that top spins in the mansion, you get used to surprises and being the part of the day that comes. But there were some lovely people, but I think first of all of Lynn T. Price. And she was a marvelous artist, really, in her music. She was from Laurel and had been sent to Juilliard, I guess it was, at the time, and made a wonderful impression on all of us. And she stayed several times in the mansion with us when she was in the state, and she frankly had not been back to the state in quite a while. And we invited her to come and sing at the inauguration. Just a beautiful voice, just wonderful. And a lovely house guest. She was far better traveled than I was in any direction, but she was lovely, and we were grateful to have her. And, you know, and then of course the others like Eudora and Margaret Walker Alexander and people like that who are kind of our regular ones who were so very talented, and we loved having them.
I think it's wonderful that you and Governor Winter initiated that particular program. We have been witnessing now for some time the work, the renovation, restoration work of our state capitol building. And the eagle on top of the state capitol has been refurbished again. And I'm thinking that perhaps that might take your memory back to December of 1982. Governor Winter had called a special session of the legislature to address the matter of educational reform in the state. And lots of letters were being written. And of course, the legislation would necessitate the raising of additional revenue. And there was a letter written to the editor of the Clarion Ledger that asked if the governor was going to take the gold off the eagle to fund this new cost for education. So talk with us a little bit about those times with the special session. I read in the book there, and I know Bill Miner has always been a very good friend of Governor Ms. Winter and a great supporter of Governor Winter. And I was surprised to read that even Bill wrote a column that was critical of the governor's decision to call this special session. And if you would comment on those times and the feelings that you all had about working for educational reform.
Well, Bill is another story almost. I remember reading that he said a sixth grader had more sense than to call a special session of the legislature to talk about education right before Christmas. He was thoroughly disgusted. I don't know whether he's in the group, but he's used to comments, I'm sure. And that was it. But we did, the Education Reform Act really got our attention. We could see that it was possible if, and so we kept on working and working and working. And I remember a lady who had called me about coming up to the Delta to speak to her group about education. And then she called again and she said, "We don't want to hear any more about education." So I said, "Well, that's just fine." But it's kind of hard to manage that. It was difficult at times. I remember reading too a bit, going to Laurel and having, there were some problems there with what we were trying to do. And I remember writing that I thank the good Lord we got home safely that night. I'm sure.
Well, prior to becoming First Lady, had you ever visited the state penitentiary at Parchman? And what led you to become involved with the penitentiary? And please tell us about some of the things that you were able to accomplish at Parchman.
Well, I became very interested in Parchman. I never had been to Parchman before William was elected. And
Let me interrupt here. How many of you all have been to the state penitentiary in Parchman, visited?
I'm glad you made that. But it's quite a place. I became interested. First time I had ever been was when he was with him and with William and going up, and we flew up there, and then when we got out, and William wanted to see the first offender camp and the young men, and I followed him as he stuck his hand between the bars and introduced himself and always said, "Tell me who you are, how far you got in school." And of course that was earth-shattering to see that a number of these young people had not had any opportunity or had not taken what opportunities they had to go to school. So it was, and we walked along, I walked behind him and shook my hand, or put my hand out too. And one young man said, Miss Winter, how is Lily doing? And Lily's our middle daughter. And it just, I thought, no, this couldn't be. I used to think everybody in Parchman was from, St. Louis or somewhere way away from that scene. But it really was startling, and it turned out that she and this young man had been students at Morrow High School. So you never know. But I did become interested in Parchman as a farm. It's an interesting place. It's some of the richest land in this world, I'm sure. And nothing was being done with that. And I saw quickly, the times that I went, the need there was for what we call later a visitor center, because families would come in there with a lot of children, and they would have to use whatever facilities were available to them in the working area of the camp, and where the people were doing the typing and all of that. But it was dreadful that they didn't have a place that they could come and use facilities there or enjoy the children playing until they could get back to see the person that they had come to see. So as the years went on, I worked on that project, and with the help of a wonderful man, many of you know, Stuart Irby, he made it possible for the prisoners at the camp under supervision to build a small house that had facilities for children and families, and they could play on the porch and be right there until they had a chance to go back and see the person they'd come to see. And it's just marvelous to think of what people will do when they understand what the problems are. And I saw that as a problem, and I found Stuart as a marvelous helper in that, and some others too. And then I wanted them to have a greenhouse, because I felt like they could be growing vegetables, beginning the planting of seeds and all of that. And we soon got that done using all of this, using the laborers from the camp itself. And then they got where they would plant foods that they would plant foods that they could eat instead of just going and opening a huge can or something, which is what they generally had done before. But they had the most marvelous corn. I remember the cabbages, the biggest cabbages I ever saw in my life. They were growing, and of course that's what that soil is for. It's the good thing about it. But it was interesting to see that work out, and several things moved along, and we worked on those.
I believe you told me that, you mentioned in the book that you all at the mansion even used some of the vegetables from Parchman.
That's true,
And
we did.
you had the assistance of a very talented architect on that visitor center, and Robert Park Adams, you back there. Bless
Yes,
you.
indeed.
Bless you, Bob, for what you did to help there.
He was just wonderful help, Bob. I didn't mean to. I couldn't see your face again. So, Bob went up there with me several times, and of course he drew the plans and made it all come about. And Bob, they tell me it's still there, standing, and plaque on the wall and all of that. I was very pleased to hear that.
I remember when we would go down to the governor's mansion, you would frequently be greeted by the prison inmates at the door. And I know you work closely with them. Tell us about some of those experiences. I know there were a number of success stories involving some of them, particularly a gentleman by the name of Edgar Glover.
I'm really glad you asked me about Edgar. He was a man after my own heart. Edgar finished his term before William and I finished our term. And I recommended to the, he was such a good worker. He really was a wonderful person. And I recommended to the dean of St. Andrew's Cathedral, and just told him that we have a man who's done wonderful work for us, and you might want to look into that. So he did, and before you knew it, Edgar had been at St. Andrew's for 30 years. Just amazing. But the amazing thing, too, about Edgar was that he had found his own. He had found a way to serve. And mind you, I really never had nerve enough to read his rap sheet, but I'm sure it was authentic. But Edgar served at St. Andrews for 30 years, and he had the job, or had made the job, of feeding homeless people breakfast on, I think it was Tuesday morning of every week. And he would, Edgar always wanted things to be done precisely, so he got them, he would line the people up. And then when he got ready for them to come in, of course he'd been there before, still in the dark, you know, early morning. But when the people got ready to come in, and he would ring a bell, and they could come in and eat. And that was what he did. And his program still goes on. But Edgar was just a whiz, and they were so fond of him, those who knew him and knew him well. And when he died, they had a lovely service. It would have been fit for a king, really, and a beautiful service. And he's buried in the columbarium on the side of the church. But he's our prize story.
And some of you may have recalled reading Mrs. Winter's letter to the editor that she wrote about Edgar Hilliard. And I was pleased to see that Joanne picked that up, portions of that, and ended the book on page 246. And may I read this now? Ms. Winter stated, his funeral may be recognized again that social standing or economic status or sectarian creed or race does not make any difference in the sight of God. That we are his children and we must continue our miraculous journey together, learning to love one another as we go forward together. I think it's fitting that we are having the program here today in the William F. Winter Archives and History building. Governor Winter came on the Board of Trustees of the Department of Archives and History. And Governor, I have written this date down somewhere, and my eyesight is failing me now. But I do remember that it was, I believe it was April 12, 1957. 1957. And that brought him on the Board of Trustees with other gentlemen, one of whom was the Speaker of the House, Walter Summers. And in 1956, I believe you had challenged Speaker Summers for this position of Speaker. Didn't work out too well on that occasion, but in the long haul, everything worked out for the best. And most certainly the Department of Archives and History has benefited from Governor Winter's involvement with the department. I went back and did a little research, Mayor Ditto, and I found that in 1957, the Department of Archives and History had 9 staff members. And I stopped by and asked Diane Maddox, the Director of Human Resources, I said, Diane, how many positions is the department authorized for now? And she said, as of July, 172, and funding for only 140. but we express our gratitude to Governor Winter for all that he did through the years to help build this department. And I remember when he served as lieutenant governor and sat as a member of the Budget Commission. In 1973, we sat down together and he said, Elbert, let's go for it. Let's go for what we need to have here. So Governor, thank you. Ms. Winter, do you have any particular memories about your involvement with the department? Ms. Capers, Charlotte Capers?
Oh, yeah. Charlotte was such a joy, she really was. But it seems like the Archives Department has always been kind of a close friend of ours for so many years. After William had been on the board for 50 years, we got to know a lot of things about the Archives. It's always been my pleasure, too, that the times that we've been able to have a meal together at our house. And then here, this is a wonderful building, and you get out on the, I guess, Katie's area and look out across the skyline of the city. It's a wonderful, wonderful sight to see.
Well, you all cannot imagine how many times Ms. Winter hosted events for the board and for the department at our home, and we're grateful for that. It's often been said that politics is not for the faint-hearted. Did you come to enjoy campaigning for your husband? And are there particular moments associated with campaigning that stand out in your memory?
Well, I guess I learned it was just part of life at our house to be involved in politics. But you know, I've often thought if you didn't have a sense of humor, you just might as well get out of the way of politics, because without a sense of humor, you couldn't make it. And I still remember the man down in South Mississippi. William was speaking, and I was handing out cards to the few who were there. And this fellow looked at me and kind of threw his glasses, which I now understand why you do that. But he looked at me and then he said, "You say you're his wife?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, I guess if you can stand him, we can."
That reminds me of another story that Governor Winter told me a few years ago. He said he had been also down in South Mississippi. There's something about South Mississippi. Governor Winter is wonderful about coming up and speaking with people and introducing himself. And so he went up to this older gentleman and said, "I'm William Winter." And so the gentleman looked at him and he said, "You look familiar." He said, "You used to be somebody, didn't you?" Well, Ms. Winter, how does a candidate's family learn to cope with political setbacks? Governor Winter, of course, ran for governor in 1967 and led the ticket in the first primary, and then ran again in 1975 and led the ticket in the first primary, and was not elected. And how do you bring yourself to interact with individuals whom you know have not supported your husband?
Well, I had to learn that one the hard way too. But of course, I realized after many losses and wins that when you meet people in the grocery store and they perhaps, maybe to your knowledge, they have voted another way, they've not voted for your candidate. But when that happens, I find it's incumbent upon me to go to that person and say, "Glad to see you this morning," because that person doesn't know whether I'm going to say something terribly ugly or whatever. But I think it's a very little thing, but it's helpful when you've had a disappointment and and you see people who work so hard on the other side of it, but that's life, and I learned that too. All of this, I learned the hard way. And my children, our little children, growing up in politics, they would see the commercials that some of them pretty hard against women, and they just didn't understand. And I finally said, now you know everybody has the privilege, the right to vote like they want to. And it may not be, they may not vote for your daddy, some of them won't. But that's the way it is. And I think the children, well, we had enough experience going both ways, so they got hold of that one too. They got hold of it.
Are you ever going to identify the lady in the fur coat at the beauty parlor?
Well, no, I think not. That prompts me, Elbert, to tell you that in working with Joanne and William and this, all of us working together with this book, I was very, I think Joanne will vouch for this, but I always wanted William with us as we were planning what she was writing and where it would be placed in the book and all of that, and it was very helpful. But I didn't want him to look up a day like this and say, oh gosh, I wish he hadn't put that in the
Well, speaking about television advertisements and this activity and campaigning, I remember going back in 1967, Lee Michelle, our oldest daughter, was 3 years old. She was sitting in front of the television and watching Governor Winter's advertisements for governor. And she said, one day I'm going to go to William Winter's school. So you had an influence on her. We appreciate that. Ms. Winter, you've been very active with Habitat for Humanity and done such good work there. I know you want to comment something about that.
Well, I've worked for Habitat for a long time, and since 1986, and I'm still on the board, but a weakened member with a bad back. But Habitat has just been my love, because I have felt like people if they're given a chance and have a decent place to live, then they have all sort of resources that they, and I understand sometimes other things happen, but it's been my pleasure to see the numbers of people in Jackson who have so willingly, the churches, the businesses, who have so willingly given them their money and their time and their whatever talents they have toward building, or just the idea of being there and learning some things. And to see later, it's absolutely thrilling to go to a dedication of a home that has been built and see the excitement among the children. William was there one day with me at a dedication. Little boy took him by the hand and said, "Come see my room." And of course, I don't know where he'd been living up to that point. But it's a wonderful program, and we started from scratch. We often tell the story of the mud puddle story, which is the blessing that we had on a cold January day after heavy rain and mud everywhere. We stood 10 or 12 hours and had a blessing and a prayer for the beginning of Habitat. And now we stand with 600 houses having been built in the Jackson area. I think that's wonderful. I really do.
Indeed. I can remember when we were growing up coming through school, Coca-Cola Company would send rulers to the school. Those rulers were handed out. Did you get one?
I did.
And on that was inscribed the golden rule. And certainly no one has done a better job in their lives living the golden rule than have Governor and Miss Winter.